Hey, welcome back to YT Finance, and today we're doing a deep dive into NNDM stock or Nano Dimension, both the stock and the company, because right now, apparently on social media and especially Reddit, people are betting that Nano Dimension is expected to have a short squeeze soon, so we're going to dive into the data to see if this is even possible right now. So right now, the best thing to do is going to be looking at the data of the stock to see how much of this stock is actually being shorted by hedge funds. So we can have the current short volume, the short ratio, the outstanding shares, the float size, how much of that float size is being shorted, and then we can come to a conclusion whether this short squeeze is actually going to happen, or if it happens anytime soon. Now, if we just look at the graph over to the right, which shows the short interest over time, we can see that the short interest has increased gradually, and then it slowly started to decline, but in the last 2 months or so, we can see that it's been relatively the same, and you can see that black bar above that, because recently the current short volume has only decreased around 100,000 shares, so it's been relatively stable. The dollar volume of shorted shares are about 211.79 million, and the short interest ratio is 1.6, so the days to cover are relatively low, so it's not like there's a huge amount of short interest right now. So if we compare the current short volume, which is about 29.83 million shares, to the actual float size, which is 256.31 million shares, we get a short percentage float of 11.64%, which is really not that high compared to some other stocks that are around the 20% mark. So if investors are thinking that they can get a short squeeze to the likes of GME or AMC, it's not even in the same ballpark. Even Clove and Bionanogenomics have a higher short position than Nano Dimension at this time. Now, if you are holding NNDM stock, you probably already know that Nano Dimension is a revolutionary type of company that will transform the 3D printing industry for the better. In the last month or so, Nano Dimension's NNDM stock has rallied about 18%, and this 18% rally came from good news because investors heard from the Federal Reserve that they will keep their easy money policies for the economy, and this means that investors are throwing their money back into growth and technology stocks like Nano Dimension. News always moves Nano Dimension stock, whether in a positive or negative position, mainly because the stock is extremely volatile and they have a very high beta ratio of over 2. Now, lately, the news has been relatively good about inflation because some people believe that inflation will be transitory, meaning that it will come over time, and others believe that we'll see a major spike in inflation, but depending on which way you think inflation will go, you should adjust your portfolio according to what you think will happen in the future, because you can use this to make really good gains, including off of Nano Dimension stock. Stocks like Nano Dimension and Senseonics are great for day trading or swing trading because you can make a lot of money off of the volatility, but if you also think that this is a good long-term investment, then go and do your own due diligence, keep researching YouTubers, getting information on the stock, and then making an educated decision whether to day trade it, swing trade it, or hold it long term. The good news is that Nano Dimension has a great support level, so we know the stock's not going to drop really low, and on top of that, we do have catalysts approaching, which I will talk about in the upcoming videos. Now, I do find it particularly interesting that a lot of people on social media are commenting that Nano Dimension could be the next Reddit target for a giant short squeeze, but with only around a 10 to 11% short interest, I don't think the squeeze is going to be exactly what Reddit's looking for. Therefore, I don't think it's actually going to happen. At least it's not going to happen anytime soon. Now, two ways a short squeeze can happen is if one, hedge funds really start to short Nano Dimension stock where the short interest goes around 20%, then it's going to be a great target for Reddit investors to cause a short squeeze. Another way a short squeeze could happen to Nano Dimension stock is if enough capital is put into the stock, thus raising the stock price and thus raising the support level. If this happens and the NNDM stock price stays above a certain level, shorts will have to eventually cover their positions. Now, this influx of capital could come from one of many things, but I'm just going to name two. First, people on social media could understand the fundamentals of Nano Dimension and their revenue model, which is the razor blade model. So basically, they're just selling machines, but the machines is not what's giving them their primary source of revenue, at least for the long run. The primary source of revenue is going to be from them reselling their inks to people, because once someone buys their machine and runs out of ink, the only way they can get more ink is if they buy it from Nano Dimension, thus creating a great opportunity for Nano Dimension to create reoccurring revenue. The good news is that this revenue model works, and it's a great revenue model that a lot of businesses use. The only problem is, can Nano Dimension sell enough of their machines to get enough revenue from reselling their inks? I don't know why I keep saying reselling. It's not reselling. They're just selling their inks to people, and that's going to be their primary source of revenue. The only problem is they need to sell enough machines so their ink revenue increases. The second way is people can realize that Nano Dimension has loads of cash on their balance sheet and they already have a 3-pronged plan, which I've done in depth and talked about many times on this channel, so it's relatively a good investment right now. At least it's a good speculative investment because they have so much cash on their balance sheet. There's basically no option for Nano Dimension to go out of business, and they have enough money to sustain themselves until they reach profitability. Some more good news is that with people talking more about NNDM stock on social media, new investors could invest into Nano Dimension. However, I want to remind you that NNDM stock is a high risk, high reward investment, and I personally only hold it through ETFs. Nano Dimension is not profitable right now. It is projected to become profitable in the future, thus lowering your risk, but in the meantime, I would highly advocate to use diversification through ETFs to hold Nano Dimension stock and use it to your advantage because it lowers your risk of losing any money. Now, I'm not betting that Nano Dimension stock will experience a short squeeze, but if it does end up short squeezing, I will invest into it just to trade off of the momentum and volatility. I will take profits and then wait for the stock to lower in price, and then I will reinvest those profits back into the stock for a zero risk long-term position, because I wouldn't lose any money from my initial investment. But what do y'all think? Remember to like this video right now, comment down below your thoughts, subscribe and turn on subscription notifications if you are new, and I will see all of you in the next YT video.